Hey, we're
Hello, hello.
here.
Another week, another insightful conversation, we hope.
Deeply, deeply insightful. I mean, just so good, you know?
I have to tell you, I did spinning class this morning with my sister, and it was one of those spinning classes where the music was just pumping. I felt so good, like I was killing it until I got off the bike and got home and sat down. And I
Yeah.
should have never done that because it literally drained my soul.
Yeah. I mean, that's an unenlightened practice. Spinning.
Spinning.
Actually, we were talking about adding a segment called That Shit's Not Spiritual. Right.
And would spinning in your book fit under that?
Right. I mean, because like we were saying, everything 150%, everything is spiritual, except for
Yes,
things
except for spinning.
that aren't spiritual. And so, see, spinning, loud
Spinning.
music.
Oh man, I was rocking it. I was so proud of myself, but now I'm literally exhausted. And I have been this way for the last 4 hours. And it's only noon.
Don't do it again.
Oh, I'm going back on Thursday.
Learn
Bam.
your lesson.
Oh, I'll forget it by Thursday. I'll wake up and I'll be like, going to spinning.
Well, then you deserve it.
I'll just make sure I sleep in a little bit longer before I head off to spinning class.
There you go. Good luck.
So we are going to share a question that came through.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
welcome to SheKings.
Oh,
episode 3 for peasants who don't want to live shitty lives.
Shitty lives. Yes, we forgot to remind people what they're listening to, and it has nothing to do with my exercise debacle this morning.
Oh yeah, and I'm Erica, and that sultry voice babe over there is Allie.
Hello.
You hear that deep tremble she has when she chuckles.
That's so funny. Every time I listen to my voice, I feel like it's high pitched, like I'm sucked in helium almost. So I'll take that compliment.
You're welcome.
I'm taking it as a compliment. Absolutely.
All right. So you were saying.
Here we go. So we had an email that came in, and if you've missed our last 2 episodes, we were talking about labels and how labels can hold us down, how to shift labels, how to change your mindset when it comes to labels. So you can kind of rewrite the story about the labels that you say, this is who and what I am. And so we got an email, and the question was, how does one live an awakened life when you have lots of things to worry about? So when you have, and I'm going to say lots of things to worry about because it's very rarely that we have one thing to worry about.
True.
So lots of things to worry about. So I thought that was an awesome question because so many roles, we play so many roles, and within those roles, things come up.
And also we have so many expectations. We have so many things that we want to have happen, or so many things that we wish were happening right now, or we wish weren't happening right now. And so, in addition to the labels, when we have things not going the way that we want them to go, the mind starts to go towards those things.
Yeah. And I just also, when you think of the future, right? Future stuff like what ifs, like what if this happens or what if that happens? I was really in that state of mind when I was younger and my kids were younger. Like I would just things would pop into my head about them getting hurt or getting snatched, just like crazy stuff. And then you just worry about it. Like, are they okay? Are they going to be okay? Like, am I going to be alive when they're older? Just things like that would always pop into my head.
Yeah. And those are kind of big deals too, right? Like the safety of the child, being there for them in the future. And also there are tiny things that can really start to take over your life and take over your focus. And as much as you'd like to, you can't get your mind off of it. When this question came in, I shared with you the example of, so when I was in college, I liked this boy. And so one day I went up to him and I told him, hey boy, I like you. And he just kind of looked at me and he smiled and like patted me on my head and kind of gave me this whole, isn't that cute thing. And then he continued to live his best life. And he did not, Allie, in any way respond to what I said, which is almost even worse than him being like, I don't like you back. You right? So it was just kind of sitting there, and I felt so silly and it was ridiculous. But what I was saying to you and what I'm sharing with you guys is I couldn't get it off of my mind. I could not. I was in college, so obviously going to class, taking exams, whatever people do when they go to college, and I didn't want to get dressed. I was walking through with these little pajamas on every day, and just in the throes of every time I tried to direct my attention somewhere else, that came to mind, that the feelings I felt weren't reciprocated. So, Allie, what do we do when we're in the throes of worry about, some future event, or sad about the thing that's not happening that we wanted to happen, or whatever?
For me, so I run my businesses, and when we first started, we owned some laundromats 5 years ago in Denver, and we quit our careers to do this. And so then it was, what if, right? What if this doesn't work? What if we fail? Would I go back to being a police officer? Absolutely not. Would I be okay working at Walmart? I don't know. So, but then I just kept coming back to what I've been taught, right? So worry, anxiety, stress, overwhelm is basically trying to control the outcome of something that you have no control over. Mm-hmm. That's it. And so I kept just bringing myself back to, okay, in this moment, is everything covered, right? Are all our bills covered? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it was like, no. No, actually they're not. Right? And then so when that would come up, right? So no, we're not going to cover our bills. And so we're just like, okay, then let's just stay open for something to come along. And then we learned about this loan program that you borrow big chunks of money and it takes it out at a certain rate. But that's worked for us to get us through that hump. So it's not like people have this mindset that, okay, if you're in the moment, then everything will work out perfect. Mm-hmm. Let go of what you think perfect is. Perfect literally means something that is happening that cannot be changed is perfection.
Yeah.
Right. So borrowing money is perfect. Right?
Absolutely.
And so for me, if I just bring myself back to, okay, in this moment, is my wellness center thriving? Is it open? Are people using the space? Yes. Okay. Am I kicked out on the street? No. Am I doing yoga in the alley? Absolutely. And even if I was, I'd be like, you know what? We're going to do yoga out here today.
Absolutely.
So it's just kind of seeing things for what they are in the moment, and then just letting go of expectations. I truly think how to live an awakened life is to be in that space of acceptance. I'm just accepting it. And understanding that accepting it for that moment doesn't mean that you can't do anything different, that you can't change it up, that you can't say, okay, this really didn't work for me this time. So now, and trust me, there will be a now. You'll have so many opportunities to keep trying this over and over and over again. So now I'm going to try something different. Even if I'm going to think a different thought, I'm going to say different words, my actions are going to be different. That's how I believe that you live an awakened life with everything that you have going on, is just do your very best to stay in the moment as best as possible.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. If you go back to the example of me walking through the campus in my pajamas.
Pajamas. Right? Wait, were they like the flannel ones with the prints?
No, they weren't.
Give me a picture here.
I mean, let's be clear. Like I had no dignity. Okay. I think flannel pajamas would have been more dignified. I remember I literally wore them for weeks. So I remember them. And if any of my girlfriends from Cobra 4 Days listen to this, they're going to know, they're going to remember it, because they were blue pajamas. And they had ducks on them. So the pans had like,
oh Lord.
shameful, 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 shameful. Okay, I can't. So anyway, I'm ashamed just, but they had ducks on them. And I think the ducks had like either little hats on or little like umbrellas. Yes. Yes. And
I think
so
I've seen them before.
Yeah. Listen, I think they were a big deal back in the day. So the pants had like a million of them. So they were like everywhere. And then the shirt was like a tank top and it had the same little duck from the pants in the center of the chest. And that's what I wore. And it was amazing. So, but I think if I go back to that time, my mind was so wrapped up in not having what I wanted, so wrapped up in the expectation that I could not get it away for a second to come back to the moment in front of me. And I also didn't have the tools that we have now to understand how to come back to the moment in front of me. So if I could give advice to myself back then, I would say, just be aware of the feeling of those pajamas against your legs.
Know that someone in Snapchat to you somewhere out there.
It is. I'm sure.
Be mindful.
Some Georgetown person is probably going to post a picture of those days. Or, feel, your feet on the ground, walking in this moment. But I think that conceptually what you were just saying is something that you and I talk about a lot about, because we really love Byron Katie. And so she's all about loving what is. So Byron Katie is a awakened one, a wise woman, whatever you want to call these people. And she does something called the work of Byron Katie. I highly recommend anyone listening to this look it up. I'm sure Allie and I will talk about it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But she talks about being friendly, being accepting, being in love with what is happening at this moment. So, I've heard her say a number of times, how do I know I'm supposed to be kissing the ground? Because I'm down here. I just fell, right? So whatever is happening is exactly what is supposed to be happening. And I think getting to that space mentally of saying, okay, this is it. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And being accepting of that is 100%, I think, the best way of going about dealing with sort of what's happening in the mind, if you have to engage with the mind. I think the other option is to go beyond the mind and to transcend the mind and to come to now, to become now, to become the space in which life is happening, as opposed to buying into this idea that you are this body, that you are this this thing that things are happening to, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a totally separate, like we could talk about that a lot, because that's one of my favorite things right now with Joe Dispenza, is like letting go of all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we could
just putting it down.
Yeah.
And I think because we could dive so deep into that, maybe the best thing I can do is just talk a little bit about how we begin to practice becoming the now. And two big things I always recommend to people when you're wrapped up in your thoughts. So the first thing you have to do is you have to realize that you're wrapped up in your thoughts, and that you're identifying with mind, and that your entire life and your entire existence has become this thing that you don't want in your life. And so once you realize that, you make it a point of, throughout the day, whenever you find yourself wrapped up in your thoughts, acknowledging that that's where you are, and then shifting. And the two best ways that I have found for shifting are, one, connecting with the breath. So I like to recommend to people that you open your mouth, separate your top and bottom rows of teeth, and just begin to breathe in and out through the mouth. And my teacher, Niru, says of this breath, this open mouth breathing, that it short circuits the mind. It short circuits the mind. So where you were completely wrapped up in what's going on in your life, now you have the opportunity to stop sending air and energy to the mind, stop sending air and energy to those thoughts. And
I like that.
Yeah. So now the air is coming in through the mouth and you're going to feel it. You know, guys who are listening, open your mouth and breathe as you continue to listen to us talk. You're going to feel a shift in your body. You're going to feel automatically more calm, more relaxed. Your body is going to start to relax because a lot of the tension that we have in our bodies because the brain is so engaged and so active. And so this breath literally short circuits the mind, relaxes everything about you, and it allows for presence to take over, for you to become one with now, not with mind expectations. And the second recommendation that I make to people is to listen to the sound of silence. To hear silence. And silence is always there. I was talking to one of my beautiful clients this morning, and I was saying to her that, you know, you could be in the midst of a room full of people with loud music playing, and you can take the time in that moment to hear the silence that must be there. And you know it's there between you and the music that you hear or the voices that you hear. Because if there were no silence, then you could not hear the music.
Right. Yeah, that's just like training your brain to, and your ears, everything, your senses to focus on something completely different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, than the thought that it's looping through.
And it becomes so subtle, right? Like your mind has to shut up. It has to, because you're trying to hear silence. Are you kidding me?
I love that.
That is effortful work, especially when you're first starting to do it.
Yeah.
Effort drops, and all you can hear is silence. And then the interesting thing about that, when we're talking about turning off the mind, is that if you're hearing silence, then your mind has to be absolutely quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be, I mean, I can see it being a struggle because that's your mind's job, is to think thoughts. Like that's what it does. It creates stories. It fills in space when there is no space. That's why a lot of people struggle with just quieting the mind, right? Because you're like saying, no, I'm taking away your job. You're fired.
Yep.
You're on paid admin leave.
Yep. But, and you and I are both fans of Michael A. Singer from the Untethered Soul and Surrender Experiment. But, you know, he talks about how, the mind is showing up for work every day because we keep listening. And when you say you're fired and you stop giving the mind so much attention, you stop engaging in all of the worries of your life and all of the dramas of your life and all of the things that didn't go the way you wanted them to go. When you stop engaging in those things, stop listening, start listening to silence, start breathing properly, then the mind is kind of out of a job. And so eventually it stops showing up, and it becomes more and more and more quiet.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
For worried, we put so much energy into things that we don't have control over. So what I share with my clients is, whatever you're worrying about, you are literally energetically supporting the very thing that you don't want to have happen.
So somebody actually said, I think it was Marianne Williamson. I think I'm dropping so many names today, but she said, worrying is like praying for
yes,
your non-desired outcome, basically.
Yeah. Right.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
So then when you're worrying, you just say, okay, what am I energetically supporting? So if I'm worrying about the safety of my kids, well, then I'm supporting that something. It may not be with your kids, but something's going to come in my life that will match that feeling of worry.
Absolutely.
So, and when people sit with it and I ask them in this moment, like this moment, do you have anything to be worried about? The answer is always no. And I encourage the listeners to do this, because if you're worried about money, if you're worried about relationships, if you're worried about work, whatever it is, if you say, okay, in this moment, do you have anything to be worried about in your relationship in this moment? The answer is always no, because it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And so you kind of separate yourself from it and just see it for what it is in this moment. Worry comes from living ahead of time.
Yeah,
that's all it is. And so pulling yourself back, that's how you stay awake, is by being in the moment and not getting wrapped up in the stories of the what ifs.
You know, I want to just take a second, because most people, when you are talking about worry, a lot of it is they believe worry gets them something. They believe that it helps them
More
plan. Yeah, of course. But it helps them plan for, every eventual outcome, or it, it served them in the past because they've gotten through this thing and they've been completely prepared, or whatever it is. And so a lot of people are attached to worry because they think that it can get them something. And I can even identify with this. I feel like, going back to my days in the corporate world, I felt like I had to be 150%, 109, a million percent prepared. And so worry was like thinking about every possible outcome, not embarrassing myself, not shaming the family, not shaming the law firm, right? And what I've found, and what I actually found even then after I started to put down worry, is that the opposite of worry is faith, trust, surrender, right?
Yeah.
Trusting that in that moment, the exact right answer will arise. And I see we're running low on time because Allie's got to get out of here, but I'm going to give you guys an example.
Yes.
When I was in law school, in law school, they have Socratic method. So that means that the teacher will just randomly call on any person and ask you questions about the case at hand. And I was, doing what I did. I was zoned out somewhere, I don't know, navel gazing, looking at squirrels. I was doing something. And my teacher was like, Erica, what do you think about that? And I could hear it in some distant land that somebody was calling my name. And I looked and I was like, well, funny you should ask. I don't know. and what I was saying is, I don't even know the question you asked.
I'm not even here.
I'm surprised I know my name is Erica. But he then said, oh, finally, somebody is paying attention here. That's the exact right answer. Who knows? And then he went on to ask me like 2 or 3 more questions that were all kind of like, seemingly deserving of an answer, but I continued to literally not know what we were talking about at all. And he continued to be like, Erica, 100% spot on. You're absolutely right.
And who knew law school would be that easy?
Right, exactly. But it's one of those things where you're just like, if I will just trust the moment, even if your answer is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's not lost to me that, yes, the point of my entire story, the greater point is that I was not in the moment. I was somewhere different. But the point is, I trusted that what was going to come out of my mouth was going to be okay. And that was the case. And that is available to all of us.
And understand that if the professor went off on you, right, and just
Mhm.
said, you're not here, you're not paying attention, whatever it is, then in that moment, that's perfect, because
Yeah,
that would be like, oh, I need to show up. I need to be present in class. So literally whatever comes to you is for your benefit. I
absolutely.
don't care if you get in trouble. I don't care, whatever it is. It literally is for your benefit. I think that's
Absolutely.
perfect. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a wake up call to where we need to be.
Yep. Yep. And you will have, and if you don't key to that wake up call, right, you have so many opportunities that the universe will send you to be like, no, you need to stay awake. You need to stop pulling the worry from past events, right? Because we worry about, oh my gosh, this happened to me back then. And so now I'm worried about, it happening again. You're
Yeah,
literally pulling the past with you. And there's no way you're going to have new experiences by living in the past. You have to let all of that go. So you have to
absolutely.
truly be awake
And
instead of just letting it be muscle memory, right? Living by default. It's like, nope, stay awake, stay present.
absolutely. And the learning that you get from each situation that comes to you, it's downloaded, it's done. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to relive it. Come to your breath, come to the silence. And this is your constant practice. So, beautiful human, thank you for your question. I hope that we answered it. And
I'm off. This is like embarrassing. So I have an Audi Q5 and the brakes literally sound like a diesel stop, like beeping. And it's embarrassing because I'll just barely touch them. And it's just like, it sounds like metal on metal, but
yeah,
I don't think it is metal on metal. There's something else going on. So I have to go drop my car off to get the brakes fixed
yes.
because I don't want my children or anybody, Mom, who am I kidding? It's for me to not be embarrassed.
There
I
you
just
go.
that on my
Okay.
kids.
There you go. Don't
It's
bring
for
your
me.
babies into this. All
Because I
right,
don't want to
beautiful
live a
humans.
shitty life
We
driving
can't have Allie living a shitty life in her shitty Audi
with shitty
anymore. And
brakes.
so you have been listening to SheKings for peasants like Allie, okay, who don't
Don't
want to
want
live
to
shitty
live
lives. Okay.
shitty lives. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.